I have two kids of my own, a 2.5-year-old son and a soon-to-be 1-year-old daughter. And while they certainly don't have their own iPads or cell phones yet, it's only a matter of time until they gauge many of these new media tools. And so, like you, I worry about how this new media world is affecting their upbringing. So by the end of this talk, I hope, therefore, to curb a lot of your worries and concerns. I hope that instead of being afraid of new media, you've instead seen how these tools can be used to raise young people to be saints. And so, a young girl is swept up into a ravaging tornado and dumped into a strange, whimsical world. Looking around, she whispers to her dog Toto, "I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." 4 young children are exploring a huge, massive mansion when they come across an old abandoned wardrobe. Opening the door and bristling their way past the coats in the closet, they emerge into a snow-covered world of magic and wonder. "Impossible," exclaims one of the children. "What is this place?" asks another. What if I told you that, like Dorothy and like the Pevensey children, that you too were suddenly swept into a strange new world, a world full of uncharted terrain and odd aborigines? What if I told you that this world was loaded with young people who spoke a very unfamiliar language? What if I told you that in this world you heard plenty of tweets, yet they came not from birds, but from people? What if I told you that in this world the dominant religion was based not on the Bible, but on a massive book composed of millions of faces, yet devoid of any paper pages? And what if I told you that in this world, blog was not a sound you made when you were sick, but was in fact an important mode of communication? Well, all of that is true. This world is no myth, no legend. In fact, you're living in it now. Like Neo in the science fiction movie The Matrix realized, a whole new reality has crept into the midst of the one we once knew. And therefore, we must open our eyes to this strange new world around us. This world encompassing tools like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, blogs, podcasting, and text messaging. In June of 2000, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops released a document on this world. They titled it "Your Family and Cyberspace," and it was designed as a guide for parents on how to raise children in this strange new world. It begins like this: every day, more and more families are discovering how useful the internet can be. From there, they cover many different aspects, but being that it was written in the year 2000, it does need some updating and some modern commentary. So hence this talk. What I propose to do is to follow the exact structure of this document from the bishops. I'm going to cover 4 different things revolving around this relationship between new media and young people, the same 4 things that the original Your Family and Cyberspace document covered. First, we're going to look at an overview of the online world. What is this new place like? This place that the bishops call cyberspace, but what Pope Benedict XVI has called the digital continent. Second, what are some of the internet's greatest dangers? What are the things we need to be aware of and look out for when it comes not only to our own use, but the use of our children? Third, what does the church have to say about the internet, about its effects, about its benefits, and about its dangers? And then finally, what can parents do? How can we accentuate the internet's positive elements and nullify its negative ones? Ultimately, how can we raise saints in this digital age? And so first, we begin with a survey of this strange new world. In 2010, last year, Bishop Ronald Herzog of Alexandria, Louisiana, gave a talk to all of his brother bishops on the subject of new media. And in that talk, he made it very clear that these new media tools are more than just a passing trend or a fad, that they have already embedded themselves deep into the ways we communicate. He said that these tools are really a paradigm shift in communications, a shift every bit as significant as the advent of the printing press. So consider this, just 10 years ago, just a decade ago, the only Facebook I knew of was my grandmother's photo album. But now, Facebook, the website, has over 800 million users around the world, half of whom log in every single day. Twitter, the microblogging service, exchanges 200 million messages, what they call tweets, every single day. And likewise, every day on YouTube, people flock there to watch more than 3 billion videos. In 2009, a Pew study found that when we're talking about young people in particular, 93% of young adults and teenagers are online. When you take into account the statistical margin of error, that's pretty much everybody. And one stat that might not be a surprise to most of the parents in the room, last year, Americans sent 1.8 trillion text messages. Now, this phenomenon is most defined among young people. A recent Nielsen report, and this is an absolutely shocking statistic, found that the average American teenager in 2010 sent and received 3,300 text messages per month, which averages out to about 112 per day. And that's the average teenager, so certainly some of you know children who send much more than that. A technology guru named Don Tapscott looked at all these statistics and trends and made this bold statement. This is the first time in history that young people have been an expert and an authority on something significant. Because of this digital revolution, he says, is changing every institution, from the churches to the schools. And so understanding that these new media tools have totally infiltrated our communication schemes, what are some of the positive elements they bring? We'll look at many more later, but for now, let's just introduce a few different benefits of these new media tools. One is increased connection. Before this digital age, kids typically used to journal or keep their thoughts in a personal diary where they shared their thoughts and reactions on things that happened during the day. But now where do they turn? Facebook, Twitter, blogs. They put their thoughts out in a more public sphere. And for all the detriments of this type of action, it does open up a communication line between parents and children like never before. You can see what your child is going through at school. You can see if she's had a particularly troubling incident and then bring it up later. And so it has definitely, in certain ways, increased communication between parents and children. It's also expanded the horizons of children. Tools like blogs and video chat software have removed two major constraints that every other human being in the history of the world has suffered when it comes to communication. First, it removes the constraint of geography. You can now have a video chat with anybody around the world. You can speak face to face without having to live next to a particular person. But it's also removed the constraint of time. You can exchange Facebook messages or blog posts or Twitter tweets at your leisure, reading and responding whenever you have a chance. So no longer do you have to respond immediately in the midst of a dialogue, but it can be extended through time. Another positive effect is what Larry Rosen, a psychology professor at California State University, has coined virtual empathy. What he means is that when you look at tools like Facebook or Twitter in particular, teens have begun to show certain empathetic concerns and compassion that they maybe feel much more uncomfortable expressing in person. And so if somebody posts that they were having a bad day at school, immediately 10 or 15 friends will ask, what's going on? What happened? Or, I'm praying for you, or I hope you feel better. But what's interesting about Larry Rosen's research is that this virtual empathy tends to drift offline. Once kids feel comfortable acting in empathetic ways through these new media tools, they then feel comfortable responding with empathy and compassion in the offline world as well. And finally, When it comes to religion in particular, these tools offer a phenomenal, innovative way to engage in faith formation. We can now blend all of the great facets of the Catholic tradition like never before. Art and architecture, music, literature, theology, science, and philosophy can all be highlighted in evocative ways through many of these tools. For instance, in the screenshot above, you can take a tour of the necropolis underneath St. Peter's Basilica from the seat in your living room. You can gaze on brilliant iconography through Wikipedia and blogs and Google Images. You can study the rose window in Chartres right from your house. And the great part is all of this formative material is available 24/7, 365 days a year. No longer does your child have to go to a particular class at a particular time to learn about their religion. They can explore it